Nobody listens to me. I, well, I'm glad to be with you this morning, and I just want to talk to you, really. I'll try not to preach to you, but I will talk to you. I grew up in the church. When I was born, my parents were devout Christians. My mother and father both worked in the church, seemed like to me all the time. They both taught Sunday school classes. Mother and dad started the bus ministry when that was a big thing. My mother was director of Bible school for 28 years. I don't know how she did it. My father was on the board all the time. And we were at church every time the doors opened, usually the first people there and the last to leave. As a teenager, I didn't really care for it that much. But I was told, as long as we're paying the bills, you are going to do what we say, or you can find another place to live. So you do what you're told sometimes. But you get through those years, and the Lord blesses you, and you grow, and you become part of the church too. I've done almost everything in church. I've never done maintenance. I break stuff. I can't fix stuff. And I never worked in the nursery. I figure if I don't make the kids, I shouldn't change their diapers. Just that simple. And I was part of all three churches. I grew up in First Church when we had Hyde Park Church. I was there. I was a Sunday school teacher. I led the singing. And then when that closed down, I came here. That was over 30 years ago. And so I've been a part of this church for quite a while. And I've done a lot of things in the church. And I've worked all of my life. I retired early from Altech after standing on my feet and watching a machine work and doing stuff. My feet hurt, my legs hurt, my back hurt. And I decided when it was offered to take early retirement. And when I took early retirement, I said, I don't want to just do another job. I do, but I want to do something for the Lord. And so I started praying, God, show me something. Give me a job in your kingdom, a job that will give me a usefulness, give me something that I know will help others. Now, I've always liked to write, and I've always loved to talk, and I pretty much like to give advice. I don't even charge anything for it. Lucy, charged Charlie Brown 5 cents for advice. I'll give it to you free. You just come and ask. I know a little bit of everything, and if I don't, I'll make it up as I go along. Just the way it works. But I said, I don't know. I really didn't feel anything. After taking early retirement, I worked part-time for about 4 hours a night at Altech doing the janitorial work. Then I went to Sara Lee's, which is now Tyson Food. And every day my nose was cold, my fingers were cold, and my feet were cold. You can't keep them warm because they keep it at 34 degrees in there. And if you have ever made hot dogs, you'll never eat another one. Don't ask me, please. I don't want to tell you. It'll spoil your hot dogs forever. I made them, I know. But so I was doing that, and I really wasn't happy there. I was one day from getting into the union, and I gave them my notice. And they said, just wait, it gets better. We'll give you a better job. And I said, no, this is not right for me. And one of my friends had said, you need to go down and be a corrections officer at the jail. You sit up in a pod and look down on people, which is always fun to do, like I'm doing now. Look down on people and you tell them what to do and answer questions. And so I applied and I was called back. 3 of us were called back for an interview. I was the oldest. I said, well, I've shot this, but nobody likes anybody old anymore. But I got the job. And I don't know about you. I think you probably thought about the same way I did. These people are there because they need to be punished. They're bad people. They're probably not ever going to be any better. And they're throwaways. And that's what most of society thinks. I thought it too. And the Lord, He didn't want me to think that way. It took me 4 years of answering questions and seeing guys. It was an eye-opener. Over 60% of the guys there were under 25. Almost all of them came from one-parent families, just a mother. Now, I know how important mothers are. I had one. I had the greatest one. But dads are very important, too. Boys don't learn how to be men if they're not around their dads. At least that's what it looked like to me. While I was there, there's a real hunger for books there because the guys have so much time on their hands and they want to read. Well, this was about the time that the Left Behind series came out, and written by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. You remember those 14 volumes? By the way, Jerry Jenkins' son is Dallas Jenkins, founder, writer, and director of The Chosen. Interesting. Apple didn't fall far from that tree, did it? And so I said, well, we worked in two different sections, two different pods they're called, A and B. And so I thought, well, I bought the first and second book for both sides, and I sent one in to somebody that asked something to read. Now in prisons, in jails, there's no secrets. None. And all of a sudden I get bombarded. I want to read that book. The guy said it was really neat about the end of time. And so I got some more, and I got book number 3 and 4, and on and on. We went, and on both sides I had all 14 volumes, and the guys would almost fight over them to read them. And I thought, well, this is neat. Hopefully it'll help somebody. About 2 years ago, one of the guys came up to me. I'm sorry. One of the guys came up to me and said, do you remember me? And I said, no. No, when you have hundreds of people, no, I don't remember you. And he said, you let me read the Left Behind books. I'm married to a Christian woman now. We go to church every Sunday. You say, but it doesn't do any good. And the answer is, you don't know what it will do. You can't see what it's doing. I see somebody every week that I was a CO here in this town. Working at the pawn shop, I see somebody every week, and they tell me that they remember me and thank me for being good to them. I didn't think I was that good. But, and you start noticing some things. And I started saying, God, is this something for me? I had been praying. This was over a year now, and I'd been there for 4 years. So it had been 5 years. I'd been praying, Lord, give me a job. And I took kind of as a motto the words that Helen Rice uses in all of her books, in her books of poetry and Christian readings. And she has it at the first page of every one of her books. It says, show me the way, not to fortune or fame, or how to win praise or honor for my name, but show me the way to spread the great story that thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. And I prayed that. And I lost my job. I lost my job because the sheriff came in and said, I hear you've been writing some prisoners. And I said, yes, I have. He said, you can't do that. I said, yes, I can. None of them are here right now. They're all gone. Well, he said, you can't. We don't approve of that. And I said, well, I don't really care what you approve of. This is what I'm going to do. Every once in a while, you have to take a stand. But it had all started back when I looked into a day room and seen a young guy in his 20s named Joe. And his picture is out on the bulletin board out there. And every time I seen Joe come out of his cell, he was carrying his Bible. And every time he came out and sat down at one of the tables, and 2 or 3 or 4 guys would gather around him. And he'd have his Bible open and be talking to them. And it didn't take him too long before he asked to come out and see me. And he said, I really need a better Bible. I would like a study Bible. And I said, and why would you like a study Bible? And he said, because I'm trying to help these guys understand, and I understand, but I don't understand enough, and there's so many confusing things. And I said, well, if I get you one, what will you do with it? And he said, I'll read it every day, and I'll read it to the guys. And so I bought my first Bible for an inmate, and I gave it to him. And he brought it down every day. And then Joe went to court and was sentenced to a prison. And he came out, and he said to me, would you write me? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I've never done that. I said, if you write me first, and I'll think about it. I came and talked to Pastor. By the way, your pastor's a good person to talk to. Really is. I sat down with Fred and I told him what Joe had said. And I said, I don't know if I should do this or not. I'm a little apprehensive. And he said, why? I said, well, I don't know if I want a prisoner knowing where I live. He said, have him send the mail to the church here and I'll give it to you. And I said, well, okay, I can do that. I said, okay. So I went back, gave Joe the little business card that pastors have. Scratched out the pastor's name and wrote mine. and gave it to him. And I said, you write me when you get there. If you write me, I'll write you. And so he wrote me with questions. And I answered them. And then he had a friend write me. And he had a friend that wrote me, and all of a sudden I was writing 3 people that were asking questions. I remember talking to Missy saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. These guys are asking me all these hard questions. And she laughed, and we prayed about it, and Fred showed me the commentaries and answered a few questions, and life was good. And then several more came about. And by the time the sheriff was upset at me, I was writing 25 people. By hand. You find out your hand gets tired, so you get a pen that's about that big around. And it really is easier to write with. And so I'd write with that. And then I started using the computer. I'm not good with technology. I thank God there's no computers in heaven. I really think Satan is in a lot of computers. I really do. Might be wrong, but I don't think so. So the sheriff and I had disagreement, and so I was put on leave while they decided what to do. Well, I already knew what they were going to do. And when I went in, he said, we can't have you work here if you're going to do that. And I said, all right. And I said, Lord, what am I going to do? That very day, the man that owns the pawn shop said, would you like to work for me full time? And I said, yes, I would. At a higher wage than I was making. I said, okay, Lord, you answered that. I will keep writing, guys. And I was, man, 25 is so many. Because one guy tells another, and then they move to another prison, and they tell some guys and show them what you've sent, and then they want you to write them. And I said, how can I keep up with this, Lord? I was reading Billy Graham's autobiography. Billy Graham wrote, when God called me to preach, I was scared to death. I didn't like crowds. And I didn't want to stand up in front of people. And I never knew what to say. And God slowly led him to small churches in the South. Just little things, and then on the radio. And that's what God did to me. I said, that's what God is doing to me. He's leading me slowly through this. And then more came and more came. And I said, Lord, what am I going to do? And Fred let me use the computer, which I'm still using here at church, running things so I can type much faster than I can write. And I learned to write a letter with everybody gets the same heading and the same ending. It's just the middle that you change to answer their questions, to talk to them about what they want to talk about or where they're at. And the numbers grew and grew and grew. Let me tell you a little more about Joe, maybe. Joe was my first, I'm still writing him, by the way. We're getting ready for our 18th anniversary of writing each other. Joe's been here at church 3 times. He gets out and he can't function. Joe is one of those people that just, he said, there's, the last time I talked to him, I said, why are you having this trouble? Why do you go back to drugs? You know the Lord, he will take care of you. What's wrong with you? You know, you ever want to shake him? Yes. And he said, you don't have rules out here. This is chaotic out here. I don't understand how to live out here. Sad, but some people are like that. Joe is back in prison now. But Joe has sent me several hundred guys. Joe has an ability, people love him. They're drawn to him. He can talk their language. He does Bible studies every day in prison. And when he can't answer something, he said, well, here, write Ted. He'll know the answer. Yeah, well, he doesn't always know the answer, but I always find the answer. Because in reality, Jesus is the answer for the world today. That's the real answer, but you have to give it to them a little bit different. You have to show them in the Bible, in your life, in the life of some of you. I have to show them. Joe's daughter was almost 2 when I first met him. And he's asked me, he said, pray for my daughter. His daughter was in a rather messy home. And the state took her away. We prayed about that, and the state took her away when she was in about the 3rd grade and gave her to her aunt, who she didn't know, that lived in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, on a farm. I like farmers. By the way, I'm not against them. I eat all their food. And Joe said, oh, I hope they'll get her into church. So when he was able to call her and talk to her and talk to the aunt, she said, well, we go to church every Sunday, and so does she. We go to a little church called Nazarene. He didn't know. He said, well, God, you did that one good. You did that good. And she fell in love with the preacher's son. Oh, well. Anyway, it didn't work out. And when she talked to her dad, she said, you know, Dad, boys are just too much trouble. And he said, you remember that until you're 30. She is now a freshman in college on a full scholarship. Her roommate's a Christian. She's going to be a nurse. And he is, of course, proud of her, as he should be. Joe has a lot of trouble in his life. Every time he gets back in prison, he gets back to the Lord. And then he helps others. He is now in Mississippi, in the Yazoo City maximum security prison in Mississippi. And in that prison, they're allowed to have books. And with the help of some friends, I've been able to send in almost 50 Christian books. Everybody in prison has a nickname. Joe's nickname is Bookman. And that's the way they say it, Bookman. And he is sharing these books with other prisoners. For the next 9 years, he will be. Well, while he was waiting to go to that prison, he was in Bates County Jail holding in the federal cell that the federal government rents there with 24 other men. And so I called and was able to get permission to send in a packet every week of 50 pages. So I'd Xerox stuff off and send stuff in English and Spanish, because there were 4 Mexicans there. And these guys just fought over stuff to read and do. I was thankful for that. Right now, because he got me into Bates County Jail, 4 different guys get a package every week. Then different cells, 20 people to a day room, 20 to 25. All these guys get to read this stuff. He got me in there. They won't let me do that in Buchanan County. No. Bates County said, yeah, send it in. And then I've written guys in Kansas, and one of them left my address in Osage County Jail in Landon, Kansas. And a guy wrote me and said, I'm a new Christian. I found your address. Would you write me? Would you send me stuff? So I called them, and they said, well, we're a small jail we have about 30 inmates. Yeah, send anything you want. So really? Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. So I send in a packet there every week. See God working in little ways. Let me tell you about Eddie Lee. Eddie Lee is a quarter Indian, Native American, grew up in Oklahoma. Father was a drunk. Said Dad used to come home and beat Mother. He said, and then when my sister, who was the oldest, was old enough, he said, Dad would rape her. And we would hear her scream, saying, Dad, don't do that, stop. He said, when I get old enough, I'm going to do something. And Eddie got old enough and strong enough. And he said, one day my dad came in that night drunk, and I beat him so hard I thought I killed him. And I was scared. The next day, Dad packed up everything he had and left. They've never heard from him again. Mother gathered enough money up from her mother, who lived in California, and he said, we all got on a bus, 4 kids and a mother, and went to a little town in California to live with Grandma. He said, those were the best days of my life. He said, we were in a loving home, nobody fighting, nobody drunk. He said, but Grandma insisted we go to church. It was a little church with a funny name. He told me 6 months later after I was writing, he said, it's a little church with a funny name. Are you ready? Nazarene. He said, Grandma prayed for me, and every night Grandma prayed that the Lord would help me. Well, Eddie grew up, went into service, got out, got married, had 2 kids, a very unhappy life, bought a motorcycle, walked away from his family, joined Hell's Angels, went up and down the western United States. When I met Eddie, and I met him through a guy that lived across the hall from him. Eddie had gone 7 years. His mother had been dead 7 years. He had not heard from anyone, any piece of mail for 7 years. And he had told the guy across the hall that I wrote, he said, I think I'm gonna hang myself. There's no reason for me to live. Nobody cares about me. And I've been so bad, God doesn't love me either. And Lanny, his friend across the hall, said, why don't you write Ted? Yeah, well, that's what Ted needs. Why don't you write Ted? Maybe he can help you. And so he did. He wrote me. The letter almost burned my hands as I read it. He told me the terrible things he had done. He said, and I am no good, and I should be dead. Don't you agree? And I said, no, I don't agree. And I said, let me tell you why I don't agree. And so I told him how God loved him and died for him. And Eddie wrote back and said, yeah, my grandma always told me that too, but he couldn't love me because I've been so bad. See, Eddie was in life without parole for taking a ball bat and beating someone to death. And other things. He had been in prison with Charles Manson. He had been in prison with Sirhan Sirhan, the man who assassinated Robert Kennedy. He said, I've known some really bad people, and I'm one of them. And I said, well, maybe you are, but do you want to change? Do you want to be different? And he said, well, I can't. Eddie would, every time I'd write him a letter, he'd write me one, but I got 2 letters a week from him. With and all kinds of spiritual questions. And so I wrote Lanny and I said, hey, how is this guy writing me? They get $8.50 a month. That's supposed to buy your toothpaste, your shampoo, your soap, your deodorant, anything else you want. Well, it doesn't. But I said, how is he writing me? I know he doesn't have any money. He said, Eddie is selling his lunch every day to get paper. I said, no, we're not going to do that. No, you're not going to do that. I wrote him back and said, don't you dare do that. I'll send you some money for stamps and paper and envelopes. He said, I don't care about money. He said, it's more important to me to have someone that cares. And I have heard that over and over and over again all these years. People say, I'd rather have somebody that cares a little bit about me, even though they don't know me. And they know the bad things I've done. I'd rather have somebody that cares than have food. And I said, well, I've never been quite there, but especially after having 2 Thanksgivings. Thank you, Vanessa. She made me eat one with her. Oh, it was terrible. The best food I've had in years. It was terrible. I could not believe people, but that's common among them because they don't have anybody. You see, these guys have cut most all of them have cut their ties with family. They have stole from them. They have embarrassed them. They have no one. Very, very few of them have anybody. And so they get me. Well, I said, Lord, I'll do it if you help me. And you know, I have been blessed every day. There's not a day gone by that I haven't been blessed. If I get down a little bit or think, well, I don't know, this person wants me to write them again. They're doing the same thing again. And the Lord says, so? So? You're not perfect. And I always tell him, don't tell anybody that. Shh, don't talk about that. We won't talk about that. So I keep writing them. Joe, I've written, we're getting ready to celebrate our 18th year writing each other and talking on the phone. Eddie has been 10 years. Charlie was an inmate here in Buchanan County when I was working. And Charlie was everybody's big brother in there. He's a big guy. He was a Golden Glove boxer. He's a big guy. It's kind of scary when you first look at him, but he was taking care of everybody. And he's going to be 80 before he gets out. He's just now 50. Just turned 51, actually. And Charlie said, will you write me when I move? And I said, yeah, I will. Charlie grew up here in St. Joe. In fact, he lived in a house behind Golden Glazed Donuts. Charlie's father left them when he was about 11 years old. Charlie, being the oldest, became the father. He shouldn't have had to, but he did. His mother was working 2 jobs. He had 2 sisters and a younger brother that he had to take care of. He said, we went to bed sometimes hungry. He said, I raided the dumpster at Golden Glaze all the time. We had donuts. And if you remember, there was an A&P store on 20th and Frederick, which was just a few blocks from his house, and he would walk there and go through the garbage of a night and look for cans that were dented that they threw away. Said sometimes you open them and it's dog food. You don't know because they take the labels off and the companies reimburse them when they send in the labels and all that. At least that's what they used to do. And Charlie would get food that way. When they didn't have enough, Charlie would steal. And one thing led to another, and now he's serving a long sentence. Charlie's sent me dozens of guys, and still continues to. This is how it just keeps going. And I thought 25 was a lot of people. I write a monthly letter, which I'm getting ready to finish today. It goes out to 436 guys in 13 states. Every day, many of the prisons do what's called JPay, which is an email service. And I get usually pretty close to a dozen emails a day to answer from guys. And I said, Lord, I can't do this. And he said, God always does this to me. He said, yes, you can. You can do it because I'm with you doing it. That's how it works. Show me the way not to fortune or fame, or how to win praises or honors for my name, but show me the way to spread the great story that thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Don't pray that if you don't want to do it. Again, I tell you, I grew up in church doing all the right things, but never doing anything special. And God has a job for each and every one of us. He's just waiting for us to ask for it. He didn't give me anything I didn't think I wanted to do that, but he knew that I loved to write. Like I told you, My grandmother was a writer. My mother was a writer. I guess I just inherited that gene. I love to write. And the Lord has shown me how to give Christian advice. And showing me where to find. I found stuff on the internet I didn't know. There is some good things, by the way, on the internet. A lot of bad things, but some good things. And I've found so much. And I've been able to send in so much. And I said, Lord, I want to do this until the day before I die. Because when you know you're making a difference, when you know you're touching someone for good and for God, that is worth everything. My life is so rich. I am so blessed. I don't know how to tell you. I really don't know what to say. God is just, I would like you to feel some of the things I feel. I'm not saying you should go to prison. I don't know what you should do. I don't know. But I know if you ask God, He will lead you into something that you will enjoy serving Him doing. And no one is too old. If you're too old and you're not any use, then God will take you home to be with Him. That's why you're still around. That's why I'm still around. I shouldn't be. I've had 2 cancer operations. I have trouble with my feet and my legs. That's why I'm sitting. And I said, Lord, I'll be happy to go home with you. He said, not yet, not yet. Your work's not done yet. And well, when will it be done? Well, you'll know. Trust me, you will know when you're dead. That you'll know. Nobody has to tell you any different than that. And what did Jesus tell His disciples? One of the last great times that they had together was that in the 24th and 25th chapter of Matthew, when they're on the Mount of Olives looking down into the city of Jerusalem. Beautiful view. And they asked Him some questions, and He gave them some answers. They asked, when's the end of time going to be? And He gave them a puzzle. And they talked about things to do, and He told them, visit the sick, take care of the orphans, go to see those in prison, and you will have a great reward someday. Well, and He listed 4 or 5 other things. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry. We can do all of that. Any of us can. We can all do something in that. Read that 45th, about the 44th verse of the 25th chapter of Matthew, and He lists all these jobs. I think they fit almost all of us. At least one of them does. But ask the Lord what He wants you to do. If you will do that, you will be blessed in ways you never could imagine. And you'll have a strength and a peace that passes all understanding. Oh, there's so much more I'd like to tell you, but I decided not to speak more than an hour. And yeah, I know. I don't worry. I promised to stop in a few minutes. I'm watching the clock too. There's some little bookmarks that I have out there on the ministry table that you're welcome to take. It has my name and address on the bottom, and I'll tell you why I want you to take them. If you know somebody in prison, if you have a friend that has a son or a daughter or a friend in prison, send them this. Tell them to drop me a line. I'll write them. There's always room for another. I can always find another stamp. Always. I use 200 a week on weekly things that I send out. I use 438 on my monthly things. God has given me a job that pays me well enough to do that. And I thank him for it. And I said, well, I'm past retirement age. I'm past 70. But, I'm going to work as long as he gives me strength and do this as long as he gives me strength. And I think it's going to continue. I know it's going to. It's not over with yet. I don't feel that. But if you know somebody, my address is right here on the bottom. Just give it to them. There's always room for another. After all, I'm only in 13 states. I could use a few more. Why not? Why not do all 50? Why not? Our vision is so limited. God's vision is limitless. We think we're doing a little bit. God says you can do more. These words were found written on a cell wall in a prison some 200 years ago. The inmate had died, and the maintenance men came in to repaint the cell. Before they repainted it, they wrote the words down. Could we with ink the ocean fill? And were the skies of parchment made? Were every stalk on earth a quill? And every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God, to write the love of God would drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, those lips spread from sky to sky. Frederick Lehman found those words and incorporated them into his song, The Love of God. And that is the love of God, isn't it? A prisoner said, the love of God is so vast that we can't comprehend it, we can't understand it, we can't use it up. That's the love of God, so rich and pure, so measureless and strong, shall forevermore endure. And I'm glad of that, aren't you? God reached out and touched all of us. And he wants us to reach out and touch others. Show God's love to everyone. And you will be blessed too. Well, there's so much more I could say and so much more we could do, but if you want, there's also a couple handouts. The Christmas letter that I'm sending them with the devotionals is on the right side, and some of the things that I send out in my first letter, like God's mysterious ways, is some of the other thoughts. There is no God thought. That's interesting. Take one, read it, pass it on to somebody, and let me know if you know anybody that would like to receive letters that are in prison or jail. Because like I said, there's always another stamp. There's always room for another member in the family of God, isn't there? Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for giving me this time. I thank you.
One of the things I love about Ted is his tender heart, and you heard him blubber a little bit up here. Believe it or not, I'll walk in the office someday, or I'll be sitting in my office sometimes, and I'll hear him blubber. And I'll walk in and I'll go, "What's wrong, Ted?" He goes, "Another one just gave his heart to the Lord." It's always that high at the end, "of the Lord," and I just go, "Isn't that beautiful news? Isn't that just beautiful?" Anyway, we're going to respond to God, and we'll respond in worship. We'll respond as well in giving. God has given so much for us. Our giving, you can kind of see as we do these testimonies and that kind of thing, the kind of work our church does. And so we give that God may continue to do good in our community. And there are several ways to give. One of the easiest is through the box out here, or a giving app, or things like that. Please remember your Freedom Drive as well. again, we're going to give, at the end of the month, we'll give a report as to how we're doing. It's going fantastic, by the way. Great things are happening there. So, and then I just want to invite you back next week. If this was your first time, please come back. We've got an exciting new series coming up, and we'll go into Advent and into Christmas time with this series. So let's watch a bumper for that real quick.